Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. First story of the day, Zachary Levi. He's talking smack, guys, and we can't let him get away with this one. So this is coming from CBR. Per Entertainment Weekly, Levi spoke about his views on modern cinema during an appearance at Chicago Fan Expo, while also voicing his support for the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. Remember when he said that he doesn't understand why the strikes are a thing, man. It's so lame that I can't promote my movie. I personally feel like the amount of content that comes out of Hollywood that is garbage. It's weird. I guess that's his quote, though. They don't care enough to actually make it great for you guys. They don't, the actor said. How many times do you watch a trailer and go, oh my god, this looks so cool? Then you go to the movie and it's like, this was what I get? The actor continued on to request that audiences begin to speak with their wallets, challenging fans to stop supporting what he believes to be subpar content. They know that once you've already bought the ticket and you're in the seat, they've got your money. And the only way for us to change any of it is to not go to the garbage. Levi elaborated. We have to actively not choose the garbage. It'll help. It'll help a lot. So this is just interesting. I mean, obviously it's funny because this is the man that starred in Shazam! Fury of the Gods. It's like, why would you just so blatantly take that L, bro? It's like, obviously people are going to bring that up. But there is a grain of truth to what he's saying. Do I believe that people making a lot of these movies just don't care, that they're not trying to make good movies? I'm sure they are trying, but I do think that to some degree there probably is a lack of passion there. I think a good example of this would be that 2018, 2019 Aladdin movie. They got Guy Ritchie to make that movie. Do I think that Guy Ritchie was not trying to make that movie as best as he could? No, I'm sure he tried, but my guess is that there's also just a lack of passion. Did Guy Ritchie really passionately want to make an Aladdin movie? I don't know that he did. My guess is Disney was like, "Hey, Guy Ritchie, do you want to make Aladdin? It's a job." It's like, I mean, I guess I'll make it. And I think that's probably where I would say a lot of the lack of passion comes from, where a lot of these projects are born out of just, well, we want to make the project because we think it'll make us money, and not so much, hey, this auteur filmmaker had an idea of an Aladdin remake. That's why I think there's a massive difference between Marvel getting some guy to make one of their Marvel movies versus Matt Reeves having a genuine desire and passion and going to Warner Brothers and being like, hey, I want to make this kind of Batman movie. That's where I don't know, that's where I would say maybe some of that is truthful. Also, he's not wrong in the sense that at the end of the day, the quality of movies that we get and the kinds of movies that we get come from you watching this video. You are the one that chooses what you go see. So, and we're seeing that in the box office this summer, by the way. We have good comic book movies like Guardians of the Galaxy and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse being incredibly successful. And we have not so great comic book movies, not being successful. Although this wasn't in the summer, but, we saw Shazam! Fury of the Gods flop. We saw The Flash flop. Right now we're seeing Blue Beetle flop. Blue Beetle's actually really good. I actually quite enjoyed it, but there's no denying that the lackluster performance of DC movies is leading to Blue Beetle. People just aren't interested. Whereas this past summer, you get a movie like Barbie, you get a movie like Oppenheimer. These are movies that, yes, there was the Barbenheimer meme, but they had great movies to back them up. So those movies not only opened big, but they're having really strong legs. So it's one of those things where I actually don't think that what he's saying is all that wrong. It's just funny coming from Shazam 2 star Zachary Levi. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next story. Beyond the Spider-Verse will release when it's ready, I tell you. Stop harassing me about it, is what the producer said. It's coming from Digital Spy. When it is ready, those conversations are thankfully above our pay grade, but I can tell you we are already hard at work on it. And we'll take the time it takes to make it great, Lord said when asked for a release date update. What we're trying to accomplish with the film is have it be the most satisfying conclusion to the story than it can be, or that it can be, probably is what he meant, and take it to places that you haven't been before, and make you laugh and cry, and cheer and think, he explained. So, that's all well and good, but, and obviously, yeah, take your time to make the best movie that you can possibly make, blah, 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 blah. Why did you release a release date? You guys did not have to put a release date on this movie, and based on all the information that we have, they should have very well known that they were not going to be able to make that original release date. And that's just the scummy part about me, because it's like if I had already known that, yeah, it's gonna take a couple more years to make Beyond the Spider-Verse, I'd be like, okay, you think I'm not gonna watch Beyond this or Across the Spider-Verse? So that's my thing, is that it feels like they were like purposely trying to trick the audience, being like, okay, well, we got to make the backlash for the cliffhanger not be as strong. Okay, don't worry guys, the next movie's coming out next year. But it feels like they very well knew that they weren't going to make that release date. So I don't know, whatever. At the end of the day, take your time with the movie, make it great. It's all that matters. Also, don't overwork your animators. It's fine. We can wait. It's fine. Like we're fine with all of that. But also, you don't need to lie. I feel like. But I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. Next story. TMNT grossed $1 billion, guys. Well, they grossed it in retail, not at the box office. This is coming from Deadline. With the new animated version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, Paramount has vibrantly revived the near 40-year-old Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird conceived comic IP for another generation, as the pick barrels toward $100 million at the global box office. Deadline hears from sources that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles brand is heading toward $1 billion plus in global retail sales. So, yeah, this is interesting. The movie itself, not doing great at the box office. I think it's just over like $100 million, which that's not good. I mean, hopefully it has legs and it sticks around for a while, but it's not doing great at the box office. So I don't know exactly how the economics of this works, but apparently, even though the movie isn't doing great at the box office, it is making bank in like t-shirts and action figures, I guess, and stuff like that. So again, I don't know how the economics of this works. I'm hoping that this leads to them being like, oh, okay, so this ancillary revenue will justify us greenlighting a sequel and that like animated show that they were talking about. Because I love this movie. I think it's great. I've never been a massive Ninja Turtles fan. I know that there are some people that are like upset because it kind of goes in different directions and messes around with the lore, but none of that bothered me. I don't even know what it is. I just really love this movie and I want to see more from this universe. And from these creatives. So, go watch the movie if you haven't. I think it's really awesome. And also, I don't know, buy a toy for your niece or nephew or child if you bared one. I don't know where I'm going with that, so we're just gonna move on. But yeah, hopefully that leads to more movies. Next story: Creature Commandos timeline placement has been confirmed. So this has been one of the weird things with this show. I haven't been entirely certain if this was going to take place in modern day or like in the past during World War II. But according to James Gunn's Twitter, someone asked him, "I have a question. What period does the events of Creature Commandos take place?" And James Gunn said current day. So this is also just kind of weird because apparently this character here, the white-haired character, I think this is supposed to be like Rick Flag's dad or Rick Flag's grandfather. So I also don't know if this is going to be like a Captain America situation where they were like put in stasis since World War II or something. I'm honestly not sure. So we'll just have to wait and see what it is. But it is going to take place in current day, which, you know, and I guess I shouldn't be too surprised because we already knew that these characters are going to transition into live action, and presumably they're going to interact with other people in the DCU. So we'll see what comes from all of that. But I don't know. Leave me alone. Next story. Arkham Trilogy on Switch has a release date. Rocksteady put out this tweet saying, "Experience Gotham City in a whole new way when the Arkham Trilogy comes to Nintendo Switch on October 13th. Special thanks to whatever this guy, CJ Wardort. Apparently he made this fan art, which is cool. Yeah, man, October 13th. I am actually pretty excited about this. The idea of being able to play the Arkham games on like a handheld is very enticing. Like, I will most likely be replaying these games. I don't know if I'm going to get it like right on the date that it comes out, because money is a thing that I do not have much of. But yeah, definitely at some point I'll be picking this up. I'm also just going to be really curious to see how well Arkham Knight runs on Switch, because if you remember, the Switch is about as powerful as like a PS3 or an Xbox 360 from what I understand. It might be a little more powerful, and Arkham Knight was on the PS4 and Xbox One, so they're basically porting it over to 2 generations ago. And because there have been some pretty impressive Switch ports. Like, I think The Witcher is on there, although I think it looks awful, but it might run okay. Apparently the port of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal is actually like pretty good. So we'll see what happens. But Arkham Knight, I remember, was a game that didn't even run well on PC at launch. So if this game can actually like come out on Switch and run okay, like I'm okay with 30 FPS and like 480p probably, or like some weird like in between like 640p or some weird bizarre thing like that. As long as I can play it on the go, on the toilet, at the doctor's office, I will be okay. But yeah, let me know if you're going to be picking that up. Next story. Sticking with video games, Netflix is apparently finally going in on cloud game streaming. It's coming from Video Games Chronicle. Netflix has launched a cloud gaming service in limited beta form. A small number of subscribers in the UK and Canada can access the service, which is now available on select TVs and will come to PC and Mac in the coming weeks through Netflix's website on supported browsers. The test supports 2 games, first-party title Oxenfree from Night School Studio and Mole Hughes' gem mining arcade game mining adventure. Players use their smartphone as a controller to play games on TV, while members will be able to play using a keyboard and mouse on PC and Mac. So this is pretty interesting. Netflix has had games for a while now, but they've really been mobile games, and you couldn't stream them. You could really only you would have to download them from like the App Store, which was a really weird like workaround process there. And it was basically a glorified Apple Arcade, which isn't a bad thing, because I do appreciate Apple Arcade. I appreciate, that Apple trying to like do something to mitigate just the complete wasteland of microtransactions and free-to-play nonsense that exists on the App Store. It's one of the big reasons why I just don't really play that many mobile games, because it just feels like I'm just inundated with these like garbage free-to-play microtransaction riddled games. So that's why I always appreciated Apple Arcade for doing something to fight against that tide, and as well as Netflix, because Netflix does offer non-microtransaction games. But the thing that I've always said is that I do think there is potential for cloud game streaming on Netflix, but if it has to be as easy as somebody can just stream it from their TV. Like right next to Stranger Things, you have Oxenfree, and it has to be super easy for somebody to just pick up and start playing it. And it seems like they're going to do that. Like if if all it is you just download this app on your phone and you can control it, that's pretty big. And I think they're doing a really smart thing by having their first game be oxen free, because from what I understand, oxen free is not like it's not like an action heavy game. You're not fighting things. Apparently, you're just, if I remember correctly, I think you're just basically just walking around a town and trying to solve like a mystery. Apparently, it's kind of like Stranger Things, where there's like a supernatural mystery in your town, and you're trying to solve it. And that's perfect for, I think, not just like game streaming, but also for like the Netflix audience. Because this is just one of those things that I've always said, I've always said this. If my sister like sat down and just started playing Life is Strange, I think that she would probably love Life is Strange. Like, she'd probably really enjoy it. Will my sister ever buy a PS4 and buy the game and sit down and actually start playing it? Probably not. But like, she has Netflix, and if she's like watching her Korean dramas and it gets suggested to her, hey, Life is Strange, check this out, and it's as simple as I just download an app on my phone and I start playing the game, I could see her doing that. I don't know, like, and I don't know. I think there's a lot more potential for this than there is like Google Stadia, because I remember one of the biggest mistakes that Google Stadia did was they tried to get hardcore gamers to start playing video games through cloud streaming, and I'm like, guys, that's not going to work. I think there is an audience for cloud streaming, but it is not your hardcore gamer that has a gaming PC or that even necessarily has a console. I think where cloud game streaming has to start with is people that don't have any of those things. Maybe they can't afford it, or maybe they just don't really want them, and they maybe they don't even want to play like Call of Duty. Maybe they don't even want to play like your hardcore games. Maybe it's somebody that likes Stranger Things and might be open to playing Oxenfree. I think that's where you start off at. So I don't know. That was a bit of a ramble, but I'm going to be looking at this whole Netflix cloud gaming situation very carefully to see if they manage to make it a success, unlike Google Stadia. But let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. We're moving on to the next story. Gunn is reconfirming that Blue Beetle is in the DCU. It's coming from his Instagram. At the Blue Beetle screening with my partner, Peter Safran, I can't wait for the audiences to meet Jaime Reyes, who will be an amazing part of the DCU going forward. So, some of his statements have been a little vague on this. It's like, oh, is Blue Beetle in the DCU or is it not in the DCU? But I mean, he's very plainly stating that Jaime Reyes will be in the DCU going forward. He's saying it. And then just to quickly move on to the next story, the director is also plainly stating it. So this is coming from the Hollywood Reporter. There's also a belief in our characters who are now going to be part of this new DC universe, especially Jolo's character and his whole family, and Bruna Marquezine's character. So knowing that they are going to continue to move forward in the DCU allowed me to feel relief for myself and for them. So it's just like, I think at this point, I think we can just accept that, yes, Blue Beetle will move forward in the DCU. And you might as well just accept that this movie is canon to the DCU, because, you know, I've seen the movie. You know, I don't want to spoil anything necessarily, because I know a lot of you have not seen it, have not watched it. I recommend it. I think it's a fun movie, but there's nothing in here that ties it to the DCEU. So it's like you can very easily just say that this is in the DCU. So I think as of right now, until I get like contrary evidence to this, or they come out and say that it isn't, I am going to move forward sort of saying that this movie is in the DCU. But we'll see. Next story, Lucasfilm has shut down one of their animation studios. This is coming from CBR. Joe Laron, the director of cinematography, lighting, and FX, took to X, formerly Twitter, to clarify the show's fate following Lucasfilm's closure of its Singapore branch of the Industrial Light and Magic production company, which has worked on animated shows like The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. According to Laron, the upcoming third season of Clone Wars spin-off The Bad Batch and the recent Tales of the Jedi is still set for production, as the studio in charge of those projects no longer operates out of Asia. According to Disney, Singapore's ILM studio was shut down due to economic factors that required the company to downsize. The studio employed more than 300 people at the time of its closure, and Disney is reportedly offering opportunities for relocation to one of its other studios in order to maintain a solid workforce, though ILM also reportedly held a job fair to find work for its remaining employees that could not relocate. So yeah, this is unfortunate. I mean, listen, I don't think you can't take lightly the current situation that Disney is in. A lot of their movies are bombing, and that is going to affect the bottom line of the company. So, it sucks, but I mean, I can understand that you gotta do what you gotta do in that situation. Obviously, of course, you could also probably shave off some of Bob Iger's paycheck. So I mean, that's obviously the other option, but of course we know that they're not going to do something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's unfortunate. But at least for people who like The Bad Batch, apparently you are still going to get that last season. So that is at least something that won't get outright canceled. But I do wonder, like, were there a bunch of projects that were going to be developed that maybe are no longer going to be developed? We're not really clear on that. All right, next story. The Last of Us, we got a bunch of updates regarding it, so let's just start reading here. This is coming from The Hollywood Reporter. So this was an interview with Craig Mazin, the showrunner. So we're just going to read some of the stuff from this interview. 4 seasons, like you suggested earlier? I was aware that I mentioned that. You never know. It can end up being 3 or 5, but 4 seems like a good number. So this is a really interesting quote. Actually, I might read through all the quotes so that I'm just going to read through all of them. You previously said that part 2 will be split into at least 2 seasons, which I assume is the case at this point. What I can certainly confirm is that the story does not fit into 1 season. Orci teased a couple casting announcements coming soon in a recent interview. Have you found your Abby? He says, maybe. You're turning red, so that's making me think yes. The strike stopped us in our tracks. Things were in process. Look, Abby was the first role that we wanted to tackle. So basically, two interesting things there. So he says that he's aiming at maybe 4 seasons of The Last of Us, maybe 5. What that tells me, and this is just what I'm taking from that. This is pure speculation. Obviously, I don't know anything. I think that Naughty Dog is making a Last of Us Part 3. Yeah, I think Naughty Dog is making The Last of Us Part 3, and I think Craig knows that, and I think that's why he's saying there's going to be multiple seasons of the show. Because, listen, as big as Last of Us Part 2 is, and it is a very long game, you really shouldn't need more than 2 seasons to tell that story. Like, a lot of people already think the show is a bit too, or the movie is a bit too long. I don't think we need 3 seasons to to tell The Last of Us Part 2 story. I think that he knows that there's going to be a third game, and he's already thinking about how he's going to adapt it. So that's very interesting. We'll see how that works out. And I don't know. Hopefully they manage to finish the Part 3 before the show sort of reaches to that point. Because hopefully there's not like a weird like Game of Thrones scenario where they basically had to finish the story for George R.R. Martin, and that was a whole other thing. And then yeah, it also looks like they found their Abby. Who is it? I don't know. I personally don't get too invested in casting stuff because I feel like that's just like it's like out of millions of actresses. They can only pick one to choose Abby. The likelihood of them picking your fan casting is not likely, so why even get invested in it? And even more so than that, I'm always sort of the perspective of, yeah, whatever, just get a good actress. I don't need it to look exactly like Abby, or sorry, I don't need her to look exactly like Abby. Please don't cancel me. I don't need her to look exactly like the video game character. Just get a good actress. It'll be fine. But yeah, some Last of Us updates there. Let me know what you think about those in the comments down below. Next story, we got some first reactions for Ahsoka. We have Mama's Geeky tweeting out, might be called Ahsoka, but it's basically a live-action Rebels, and I'm not mad at it. The first 2 episodes made me cheer, laugh, cry, and really want a Lothcat. Great lightsaber fights and lots of heart. If you haven't seen the Rebels animated series, watch it now. She continues, I'm digging the story so far. Massive cliffhanger at the end of episode 1. The entire cast is incredible and perfectly embodies the Rebels. This feels like Rebels. I'm obsessed already. Cannot wait for more. I didn't want it to end. Dave Filoni is a genius. Then this guy, Eric Davis, came out and said, the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka are a lot of fun, especially for fans of Rebels and Clone Wars. Love Ahsoka's fight scenes the most. The first episode is written and directed by Dave Filoni, and it's my fave of the 2. Definitely more serious in tone. This is some good Star Wars. Story works without having to watch Rebels, but it's definitely better if you can watch it, at least the end of it. Great to see some fave characters in live action. Also, I yelled out loud at the very opening of the show. It's not just characters we reunite with in Ahsoka. Not just characters. I'm not sure what he means by that. I will add that getting to watch Ahsoka in a Dolby Theater reminded me of how powerful and important sound is to Star Wars. I missed hearing a lightsaber fight and the gorgeous score on a big screen. Makes me even more excited for the movies to return. Also, this shot rules. So, yeah, interesting reactions. They're very positive. I actually, obviously, there were a bunch of other reactions. I haven't seen a negative one. Then again, you also kind of have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. Sprinkle salt base, sprinkle some salt on there. A lot of these early fan reactions, I don't think that these guys are like paid off or anything, but like these are people that are kind of inherently going to like Star Wars. These are like some of the biggest fans of Star Wars and of sort of this ilk. And I don't think that they're necessarily lying. It's just one of those things. It's like when you see these guys come out and say that The Flash is great, you kind of just have to, you got to realize just whether or not you tend to agree with these people or not. So that's just one thing to point out. It doesn't necessarily mean that the show is going to be bad. You just got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Also, interesting that they mentioned that, like, Mama's Geeky, she said that this very much feels like a continuation of Rebels, so that is also a concern. As much as Dave Filoni and Rosario Dawson can come out and say that you do not have to watch Rebels in order to understand Ahsoka, we'll see if that's true or not. Now, I am currently trying to binge through Rebels. I don't know if I'm going to finish it before Ahsoka. We'll see. I might end up having to watch at least like the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka before I finish Rebels. I'm gonna try my best, but I'm still working my way through season 3. Although hopefully, I think season 4 is only 13 episodes, so hopefully that bears through. I will note though, I recommend people going out and watching Christian Harloff's out of the theater reaction for the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka, because he did a pretty smart thing. He brought along his friend who never watched Rebels. And his friend said that he, as someone who never watched Rebels, he had no trouble following Ahsoka. It's like, yeah, is there certain context to certain things that he didn't understand or know about? Obviously. But he said, this is the guy that's never watched Rebels. He said that he had no issues following it. So I think that's good news, because that's really is the important thing about this show. Like, the truth is that there are a lot of people out there that are going to go, oh, Rebels is animated, I don't want to watch it. And it's not a good perspective, but there are a lot of people that just have a bias against animation. So you have to make this for the general audiences that they're at least able to follow it without having watched Rebels, while still balancing that with rewarding the people who have seen Rebels. So we'll see how they handle it on August 23rd, I believe. Next story. Rebel Moon is going to have a teaser at Gamescom. So Zack Snyder posted this tweet adding the final touches. The Rebel Moon teaser trailer will make its global debut live at Gamescom. See you there on Tuesday, August 22nd. Hashtag Rebel Moon. So, one thing to note, yes, there will be a trailer there, but I'm going to make a prediction here. I think they're going to talk about that Rebel Moon video game that Zack Snyder has teased in the past. And I'm going to be very curious because we just saw that Netflix is doubling down on their game streaming. I think we could see something pretty impressive from a Rebel Moon video game on Netflix, especially if they double down on their game streaming and it becomes a more accessible thing. Because I kind of don't want to play a Rebel Moon game on my phone. If I could stream it to my computer, that would be ideal. So I'm being curious to see what it is. Because, I mean, well, obviously Gamescom, just so you know, is a video games conference. It's a game, not Saturday Night Live. I think it's Opening Night Live is a video games showcase that they're showing the Rebel Moon teaser. Rebel Moon doesn't really fit in there unless they're also going to announce a Rebel Moon game. Now, listen, for all we know, the Rebel Moon game is going to just be like it's going to be like a match 3 microtransaction riddled whatever mobile game. That is very possible, but hopefully it's something more interesting than that. All right, last story of the day. We have our first look at Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, which is bizarrely an Apple TV Plus Godzilla show. But we got some images from it. So apparently Kurt Russell and his son, Wyatt Russell, they are going to be playing the same character but in different time periods. So honestly, that's kind of fun. I actually do kind of like that. And then we also have this character here. I don't know who she is. And then we also have Godzilla. Look at that. I mean, this is pretty good for an Apple TV Plus show. Although it's possible that this is the one frame that we see a monster in. It's like it's just this, and the rest of it is humans talking in boardrooms. But yeah, I'm okay. So here's the thing: I've actually never seen the modern Godzilla movies. Like, I think there was one in it started in 2014 with the first Godzilla movie, and then they made like Skull Island and King Kong versus Godzilla. They made I haven't seen any of these movies. I'm mostly just interested just from a logistical perspective. How exactly do you make one of these on TV? Because undoubtedly, this show is going to have to be like a bunch of humans just talking. And again, I haven't seen these movies, but everyone always says that the worst part about them are the humans. It's like, we don't care about you, human. We don't care about your problems. I want to see the big monster going rampant throughout the city. I'm going to be very curious. That, like one of two things. Either this show is like one of the most impressive shows of all time in terms of its special effects and them managing to execute these monsters in a way that nobody could have ever expected from a TV series, or they just shock everyone and the human drama is actually quite compelling and drives us to continue watching. Or the third most likely option is that this ends up being a really boring show because it's just humans and you want to get back to Godzilla. So who knows at the end of the day? But what I do know is that that's it for this episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. Let me know what you think about any or all of the topics that we covered today in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.